Okay, so we've done a single crochet, so now the next stitch up is a half double crochet, which, as the name implies, is halfway in between a single crochet and a double crochet. It basically just has to do with the height of the stitch, but there is a little bit of variety in how exactly you do it. So, unlike with the single crochet, what you're going to do, I've already made my chain. Instead of skipping just the first stitch, you're going to skip the first 2 stitches and go into the third one. So you obviously don't count the one on the hook. 1, 2, those are skipped, and then 3. But you don't just go right into it like you do with a single crochet. You yarn over. This part is actually a little tricky while you're getting used to it. Just you basically wrap the yarn around your hook like this, and then 1, 2, 3 stitches. Okay, into that one, right there. Go on through. Going to bring up 1 loop. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, and then you pull through all 3, just like that. Yarn over. Go into the next stitch. Okay. There's your 3 loops. Pull through all 3. Yarn over. Go in through the stitch. A little bit more time consuming, but again, like with single crochet and with just about any stitch, it gets easier once you get past the first initial foundation row. And there's a little bit of difference in when you go up to the next row too, which I'll show you when we get there, but have to get through this foundation row first. So also, because you skip the first 2 stitches, you're going to have 2 stitches less at the end of your row than you did when you started it, which is crucial for keeping track of whether or not you've done it right. But that is normal. It's supposed to be that way. So, like for instance, I did a chain of 15. I'm going to have 13 stitches at the end of my row. See how it's starting to look? Like a normal single crochet would be just these V's and then the V's along the top. As you can see, there's an extra little line above the V's before the top of the stitch in a half double crochet. It's not much different in size, but there's a little bit of extra height. So for whatever that's worth, sometimes it's called for, but usually, more often than not, you'll be dealing with single or double crochets, but every once in a while you'll run into a half double crochet, and it's good to know how to do it for when you do. And it's pretty simple. Go through all 3. Get through the other half. And see what I did there? I guess I did do it right. Whoops. Sometimes I'll realize halfway through that I forgot to yarn over, and then you just pop the hook out and start over on that stitch. As long as you remember on that same stitch that it's the one, then yeah. Otherwise, you just go back to where you think you started forgetting, rip those out and redo them. Which, unlike in knitting, in crocheting, it's much easier to tell which stitch is which, and it helps for mistakes. Get my yarn around here. We're getting there. Since this is a video for beginners mostly anyway, I'm sure you don't mind seeing me do this quite a few times, especially if you're doing it along with me, because it's good practice. Some of you might already be faster than I'm going right now, but I'm going slowly to show you how it goes. Through the 3. See, down to the last 4 for this row. That didn't take so long. I know some people just dive their hook in right through the middle of the stitch on the foundation row, but that is not how I personally do it. If you want to, you can, and it'll still work, but I like the extra stability of going through the 2 loops instead of just the 1. Because you're going to be doing that on all the other rows as well, so I see no point not to do it on the first row too. Through all 3, 2 to go, yarn over, go through the stitch, oops, didn't get both halves of it, and pull through the 3, last stitch, yarn over, that last little stitch is often tricky to get, but it can be done, obviously, as you just watched me do. Through the 3. Okay, so you've got your first row of half double crochets. See, that wasn't so hard. Now, at the end of a single crochet, you would just chain 1. Because this is half double crochet, you're going to chain 2. Which, see, I lost it. Okay, go back in. Chain 2, and you turn it around. Now this part depends on what your pattern calls for. Some patterns will call this chain 2 its own stitch and have it count as 1. Others will have it not count as 1. If they don't specify, then don't count it as 1. But every once in a while you'll find one that says it counts as a stitch, so we are just going to assume that this does not count as a stitch, and we're going to go into that first stitch. Whoops, wait, I'm accidentally double crocheting. That's not what we're doing here. Okay, yarn over, and into that first stitch, and through all 3. And you just carry right on doing that. Fell off. Okay. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And hopefully I'm keeping this where you can actually see it. I'm trying to keep an eye on the viewfinder and on my yarn at the same time. It's not as easy as it sounds. And because I have it aimed a little differently than earlier, so I'm still a newbie to making tutorials, so hang with me, guys. That's why I'm doing so many stitches, so in case some of them go out of the frame, there will be others that you can see just fine. See how much faster this is going. We're already almost all the way through our second row. I'll do a third row too, and then call it a day for the video. Do the stitch, pull through all 3. Skein of yarn needs to be unwound some. Okay. Into the stitch, through all 3, yarn over, through the stitch, through all 3, yarn over and through the stitch, all 3, yarn over, oops. Try that again. Through the stitch, through all 3. Okay, chain 2, turn it around, and this is what our yarn is looking like now. Move that out of the way so it's not as distracting. See, it's very similar. It just has a little extra piece to each stitch than a single crochet does. So let me do one more row for you guys. You can always rewatch the video if you need to, or just contact me if you have questions. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through all 3. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through all 3. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through all 3. Yarn over, through the stitch, pull through all 3. I really should have wound this better, but I'm reusing yarn, so. Okay, yarn over, in through the stitch, and through all 3. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through all 3. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through all 3. At this point I probably don't need to narrate it, so I'll just finish up the row here. And don't forget your chain 2 to go on to the next row, but that is a half double crochet and how you do it.